Hello, beautiful people. I thought I'd do a bit of a vlog, come back for a little bit of a chat, because I just happen to have my Monday night free. I've been doing a Samoan language course, Kagana Samoa, and this would have been my 4th week. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, our facilitator, they don't call her a tutor, they call her a facilitator, she can't make it. There's about 34 people in the class. We do it by Zoom, but it's based in Auckland. It's actually a free course. It's really hard. It's really hard too because I think that the woman that's taking it, the facilitator, she's great at speaking Samoan, but she's not so great at teaching it. Anyway, anywho, that's why I have tonight off, because normally I'd be entrenched in something. And so I thought, well, I'll use the evening. I've got the house to myself at the moment, and I thought I would use the evening to come and have a bit of a chat about what I've been up to last time. Now, the last time I threw I threw a vlog up, it was me driving home from Russell. So I'm back in Raglan. Yay, safe and sound. It's always good to be home, although Russell is a wonderful place to be. And it was about my dad, and where we kind of stopped was the conversation with the surgeon and my younger brother and myself on the Friday night when I finally got to the ICU in North Shore Hospital. And I decided I did actually go on and do a couple more on my trip, but I ended up deleting those. I had a bit of a think about it, and my father has passed over. He passed over nearly 2 years ago. So the beginning of September will be his 2nd anniversary. The story went on for 3 days in the ICU. Then it went on for probably another 5 days with the funeral arrangements, laying in state at home, that type of thing. But 2 years later, it's still not completely finished. And that actually is going... I have a lawyer who's been sending letters because, and I've learned this through going through the legal process, is drama at the end of somebody's life between family members is more common than people would think. And you might think, oh, they had a bit of an argument or they weren't speaking to each other at the funeral, but this one in my family has gone on and it involved multiple people, and it's got to the point now where a lot of other people have fallen away, but there's just one antagonist that is having to answer some questions from my lawyer. Let's just put it like that. And because that's still in the process at the moment, I don't really want to talk about that anymore. What I will say, and when I do carry it on, like I will carry this story on, but I'm going to give it from the perspective of the legalities of it. Not as much legalities, but I had become my dad's EPO, as I said. He tasked me with a lot of his wishes to be upheld during his funeral, most of which, 99% of which I did, 95%, because I can only control myself. There are other people in that mix. And because I was his EPOA, it made things in the hospital a lot easier. We were there for 3 days, and there were some tough decisions to be made, and it would have been harder. It would have been much more difficult had everyone had an opinion and a voice. But because really at the end of the day it came down to my voice, because Dad had told me what he wanted, especially if he couldn't speak for himself. We definitely had that conversation. I was the one that, with multiple, like many, we're talking maybe 25 up to 30 other people in the room, I'm having to discuss what we're going to do with my dad and how the game plan is, as in letting him pass once they took him off life support. We had to wait for the surgeons to be ready and give him the chance and monitor him. And then when they said, okay, well, we're going to try this because, any more time passing is not going to be good for his chances. But if something happens, we'll be able to resuscitate him. And I had to step in and say, no, you won't. We're going to let him pass. And that's what I knew my dad wanted to do. And I was there at the end with him too. And so I've had my father passing, and I probably had the most to do with that funeral. When my grandmother passed, I had a goodly amount. But when I lost my grandfather, then my Auntie Josie 6 weeks later, and then my grandmother, I was kind of on the peripheral of things because my grandparents still had their children there, and I'm in the next layer. I'm in the third layer. My grandparents, my dad, and then me, my siblings, and my multiple cousins. So I really wanted to, where I will go with that when I carry on is the importance of having an EPOA and a living will, if nothing else. If you haven't got it in with a lawyer, you can still have what's called a living will. And so I have a book. Where is it? Is it here at the moment? Oh, honestly, if you saw my desk, I've got all this paperwork out. I'm such a hard copy person. I always take notes. I must have put it in my room. I have a end of life book that I jot notes down and that type of thing, because my grandmother, when she passed away, she had a lot of it taken care of for us. And I just, even though it was difficult when she went through that, like my daughter was only 2, so it was probably a good 12 years before she passed. My grandmother had bought her plot, and it was a difficult conversation to have with her. And then she wanted me to take her to drive her there because it was just out of Auckland. It wasn't any of the main ones in Auckland. She'd found a very, very new park, Auckland Memorial Park, and it's absolutely beautiful. You can see years on a lot of Asians up there, a lot of really beautiful headstones. Yeah. So Gran had that. She'd purchased the plot. She had money in the bank to bury her with and pay for the funeral director and the obituaries and all the miscellaneous. There's a lot of miscellaneous stuff that you don't really think about. A lot of people don't think about when it's time to bury them. And I really have taken a leaf out of my grandmother's book and the fact that being practical is the best way to do it. My father and I had these discussions, and I had raised them with him. And I'd done it this way because this is what I believe. When somebody passes away, it's the last time you get to fulfill their wishes and their passing over. You want to do it exactly how they want it done. How do they, and there are people that don't want to fuss at all. My dad, because he was a big man and he knew there'd be difficult getting in the house, like up on the decks and into his room, and it was all quite awkward, he said, "Oh, just put me in the coffin and put me in the garage." Oh, no, mate, not putting in the garage. So there were some things I wasn't going to do, but he didn't want a Catholic service. He didn't want us to spend money and take him there. So I didn't do that. However, I did have his last rites done when he was in the hospital in ICU. So there were things that he wanted. I didn't want people he wanted there, and just a handful of people he didn't. And so that makes things go a lot easier. Easier when you know you're following somebody else's script, the person who wants it. It doesn't make it easier dealing with the family. That's something I learned with my father's family, is that there were so many people, well, there were a handful of people that were so put out that I was Dad's EPOA, that it really gave them a bad attitude. And it's interesting, there was only a handful of people. There were members of my family I hadn't seen for a long time that were actually quite pleasant, and I had softened my stance towards them. I mean, it did turn out later that it went absolutely my father said, "You're going to be up front and center for this, and there's going to be a lot of shit flung your way, because people aren't going to be happy that you're doing this, but you're the only one that's asked me about it. You're the only one that's spoken about it, and you are the eldest child. You're my eldest child. And my dad and I had really forged such an amazing relationship in the 7 years of my sobriety. We'd gone from strength to strength, and he had really been such a supportive and so an amazing rock to me, a real anchor, actually. My dad was an anchor in the last 7 years of his life for me. And that was such a beautiful thing, to end his life being more connected to him than I'd ever been before. And there were times where he knew me better than I knew myself, because at times for him it was like looking at himself. And hindsight's a beautiful thing, as I've said before. I mean, my dad was a very intelligent man, ran businesses, created businesses for other people, always worked his way up from, when he was younger, factory hand to leading hand to managing companies. He was a very smart man. But wisdom also comes to you through experience and what you go through, and you reflect on if you could have done things different. And my dad was he was hot-headed. He was so thorough and logical in so many areas, but him and I both, we get quite impassioned about certain things, and then I can go from 0 to hero. But the older we got, the less things that trigger us. And at 70, there were very few things that would have got Dad's blood pressure up. He started to worry a lot instead. He started to really feel the heavy weight of where our family was going and how difficult it was for us to kind of reconnect. When we'd gone from such a tight family, Dad being the eldest of 8 children, raised by immigrant parents, it was them. It was it was our family. And then I come along, and then my aunts and uncles start having children, and I've got all these first cousins, and it's great. It's great for a long time. But then other people come into the family, and if there's already trauma and past hurts and, different moving power dynamics in a family, then as the generations go on, the further generations stop feeling a sense of loyalty. And they just see the family as something completely different to what everyone else is seeing it. So anyway, Dad had really struggled with that in the last of his years, with everything that was going on. So yeah, really, I wanted to just discuss the difference. I wanted to get to that point of being Dad's EPOA, and then talk briefly about my grandmother. And I will do these in subsequent vlogs, I think. But what I really actually wanted to talk about, how many minutes? I've been on here for 13 minutes. Yeah, maybe I might just leave it here. I do have all this really interesting stuff that I want to read from this hui that I went to yesterday. I went to a hui in the Raglan Town Hall, and it was to do with some very interesting it's a strategy that the government's got, and they're calling it the Simplifying Local Government Reform Program. And because I have had a few things to do with local governance boards, because down here there's 3. There's the Waikato District Council, Hamilton City Council, Waikato Regional Council, and they all do different things. They're all tasked with different things. And so the government is doing a real big shake-up of all the different kinds of councils that they are right across the country. The Waikato is no exception. And on Saturday, I didn't know about this hui that was going to go down on Sunday, and Penny Hulse from Auckland was coming down. She's a retired politician, and I knew her from when I lived in West Auckland. The mayor of the Waikato District Council, the mayor Askell Beach, he was going to be there, and another guy, Noel Roberts, I believe, who sits on the community board. And Lisa Thompson's there, she's got a place there too. So it was them explaining what the government is asking or telling the councils what to do, and they've got 7 weeks left to do it. They've given them 3 months. It's all they've given the councils right across the country, and it's a bit sneaky. There's a lot more to it. So that's what I actually wanted to come on and chat about, but I thought I better finish out that a little bit about my dad, my gran, and the importance of having an EPOA and a will. And I feel so strongly about it. I've had I've made 2 speeches at my Toastmasters club about it, and that actually triggered people in the crowd in my club to go and get their will done and sort out the EPOA and that type of thing, because you just owe it to your family. You owe it to your family, and we can't foresee things. There are unscrupulous people that after the will's read, they can contest it and they can cause all sorts of trouble. But I think the tighter you try and get everything, especially in EPOA, because sometimes we can't speak for ourselves when something goes down, and you need someone that's had that conversation, that has the power, who's had those conversations with you to say exactly what's going to happen. Because otherwise, like I say, when my dad passed away, there would have been several people. Would have been, it was already fraught with tension. Had my siblings and I and my dad's siblings all been involved in a conversation, oh golly, that poor man, my poor father, would have lingered even longer in ICU while everyone tried to make their mind up. But I was the one that knew what Dad wanted. And not only had he told me, I could feel it in my bones that he was tired. Because as I say, I hadn't spoken to my dad since the Friday afternoon when I called him to say that I was coming, and he'd had that turn with the nurse. And then when I got there, he was in the coma, the medically induced coma after surgery. And so I never had another conversation with my dad real time. I spoke to him. I talked to him lots over those 3 nights that he was in ICU. Man, yeah. And I was grateful for those 3 nights in ICU. But they were hard. They were super hard. I don't think I've been ever challenged with such a responsibility and a grown-up thing to do. And that's crazy to say that, because I'm a parent of 3 children. But I think it's next level grown-up shit when you are somebody's EPOA and they're in a coma in ICU and you need to make decisions in the face of a big family. And as I say, the reason why this will be, I've actually been writing about it, I've been journaling about it, and when this is done and dusted, because mate, we got the council involved, they've been so dodgy. We've got a relative, well, we have several relatives because I've got my siblings, and it's taken us a little while to get, it took us over a year to become united in getting Dad's wishes fulfilled for where his ashes will go. And so, and various uncles. So, we've had to work through a lot. But as I say, it's been nearly 2 years. The lawyer has had to try a few different angles and pivot on one, because we've had to get, disclosure, what do you call them? You use the Privacy Act and you ask a government department to show full transparency in all the paperwork as to the decisions they made, the protocols they followed, what are the normal protocols, and they're definitely, I can't wait to publish it. I have written extensively about it, and it was a heartache for a long time. It was, my heart ached for my dad. I got 2 days to mourn my father. I came home from his funeral back to Raglan. I took 2 days off. And I pretty much just stayed in bed and cried. And then I had to get up and get on with life, because there were accounts to be closed out. Nobody could find my father's landlord's phone number, because my dad's phone mysteriously went missing from the charger in the kitchen. And just for instance, the landlord's number, that was the 3rd time I had gone through my dad's stuff in the garage. And so that's a return trip to Auckland for me, because I was going through all my dad's stuff anyway, trying to sort it out. He lived with my cousin. I had to get rid of stuff, but just through the paperwork alone that had been packed up and put in the garage when he passed away, that took 3 weeks. And it was just a random piece of paper, going through stacks of stuff, looking for this phone number for the landlord. I had to, we even tried to get the landlord's details through Waterclear. It was hard. It was hard. And as I say, there's not just paperwork and things like that. I did cards. I wrote, on top of everything else, I wrote thank you cards to the people that had come. And I, put in an order of the service again and another little badge. And, that took time, that took money. It's not cheap to post letters these days. And, I bought really nice cards, beautiful cards, not just a one pack fits all, sunsets. And I bought them based on the people that I was sending them to. Anyway, it took 3 visits to Wynn's and 5 conversations to get his, to get the, what do they call it? Like, it was a grant. It was a grant for his funeral, to support his funeral, getting that done. And for some reason, it wasn't as straightforward as it had been for everyone else. There was a lot going on, but as I say, Dad and I had talked about it, and that was a decision that he had made, and I was up for it. I'd said that to my dad, leave it with me, I'll do it. I just wanted to do my dad proud. And I didn't allow myself to grieve very long. I didn't cry when anyone else was around in the whānau room. I would cry. I would let tears roll down my face when I was in ICU with Dad at night. I wouldn't sob because I didn't want him to hear me cry, but tears would run down my face. And then I came home the night he passed away. I was at the hospital right until the funeral director came, and it was so hard for me to let my dad go. I hadn't left his side for 3 days, and it was a woman, it was a female that had come from the funeral director, Haven Falls in Henderson, and she was beautiful. She just promised me she would look after my dad. Yeah, she was pretty amazing. So I let him go, and so that we went back to my dad's house. That was on the Monday night. We went back to my dad's house. We packed up his bedroom because we knew it had to be sorted for to lay him in state when we got his body back finally from the funeral. And I came home to Raglan after we tidied up his room and we packed down his bedroom, and I'd already organised, well, actually my daughter-in-law, bless her, Livy, she organised cleaners for me, found some cleaners. I had them coming the next day, but we needed to do my dad's room, so it was myself, my 2 sons. I had 3 cousins there and a cousin's son. And we did it. We packed up my dad's room. There's a lot of stuff in his room. He had a lot of furniture. He had a massive room. Table, chairs, laptop, like a little desk corner, and lots of bureaus, and a massive bed. A brand new bed, actually. A bed that I had just organised for him maybe about 2 or 3 weeks before he passed. And then once it had done, I think it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I went to drop my big son off home, and on my way back to Raglan, and he decided he would come and stay the night, coming down for a drive, which was great because I was exhausted. I had slept very little in the ICU with my dad, and I had one shot at coming home and unpacking what I'd had. Lucky I'd actually gone prepared. I'd had to buy some more clothes while I was there, but leaving on that Friday, I just knew I was going to be in Auckland for a few days, so I knew I was coming home on the Monday night to get my shit together, really. And my youngest son was here. I know my big son, actually, I beg your pardon, both my sons were with me. I left Ezra behind on the Friday, but the very next night his girlfriend's mum, bless her, drove him all the way from Raglan to Auckland so that he could be by our side. He could be with his grandfather when his grandfather passed. And my kid didn't leave my side. He just, especially that last day when we were in that room with my dad, he just stood, he had my back the whole day. And there were times he would just put his hand on my shoulder or he'd try and hug me. That was so touching. Having my, yeah. So anyway, we came back to Raglan, and on the way home we ran into 2 big detours because the Māori king had passed away just a couple of days or a day before my dad. And so there were diversions and that type of thing because all sorts of things were going on for the road for everyone to head down to the Waikato, to Tūranga Waiwai Marae, where he was going to be laid to rest. So lots of things were in the work. There was a lot of energy in the air. And so this diversion, I left Raglan I left Auckland at 11 and I didn't get home till 2:30 because of the diversion on the Southern Motorway. We had to go around, like we ended up coming in the back way through Gordington. It was a long, dark drive because there were no lights. And I got a few hours sleep, and then the next morning I had to get up and try and, on a little sleep, just methodically think about everything I needed to pack and take back to Auckland with me. And I ended up leaving my younger son behind because he was sick. He was sick. And so I went back to Auckland without him. He did end up coming back up a day later, a couple of days later. But he stayed with me until his grandfather passed. Yeah, and my son was sick. My youngest son he ended up getting terribly, like a really heavy cold. It was a really difficult time. And so when I went back to Auckland on the Tuesday afternoon, by the time I got back, I got stuck in all the Auckland traffic coming back, and I had to drop my son in East Auckland and then head out to West Auckland. And this time my dad's with the funeral director. And in the end, we couldn't get him back until late on Tuesday, like we're talking, 6, 7 o'clock by the time Dad was ready, because he was a big man. And so I guess he needed a little bit of extra zhuzhing. I'm not sure, but yeah. So then I had to go back to my dad's. He wasn't there. I was going to dress him with my sister, and I went straight back into a meeting. My uncle's there, my brother. That meeting went to absolute crap, and it caused a lot of tension for the days to come. And because, twice during it, my younger brother had apologized for his outburst. He wasn't dealing with it. And in hindsight, I think it took a year, maybe a year and a half, before I realized that they were all grieving too, and the only way that they knew how, which was, who was in the firing line? Me. And it was a position my father had been in for so many years as well. Crazy to think that, listening to Dad, I ended up in the same position as he did. And sometimes those that are in the leadership roles, it's not easy. And there are a lot of people that will give them a hard time. I certainly got a hard time. But it made me even more determined to stand tall and fulfill my father's wishes. And I'm still doing that now. Look, I've talked now for 28 minutes. I'm always mindful of how long I actually spend talking, because when I watch content creators, I can't watch it past a certain time. When there are podcasts and they go for like 2.5 hours, 1.5 hours, I'm like, wow. you've had that, really? I would have gone on so many different tangents in 2 hours. So yeah, that story will have a happy ending, and there's lots of other bits to come out of that, but I thought after the last upload I should probably finish it off by explaining why I won't go too deeply into that, because as I say, there are lawyers involved, and that will be going to court, I believe. There's a good, strong chance. So yeah, it's all documented anyway. That will come out. But my message today, if you're watching me this far, and you're finding me interesting and you're finding me compelling, let this be compelling too. Please organise your EPOA. Write your will. At the very least, do a living will. And a living will is just something you've written down and had signed by a whānau member or a friend, or take a couple of pictures of it, and for goodness sake, let somebody know where you're hiding it, but just to say what you want to happen if you can't talk for yourself. You know, do you want to stay on life support? Do you want to be switched off? What time do you want to be switched off? Sunset? You know, how do you want to depart this life? We all want to go with dignity if we can, and we all want that last celebration of life as well. Golly, I've got a playlist. Oh my goodness. But, you know, I'm real practical now. You know, my grandmother taught me that. She was just, her funeral's a lot smaller because she's on my European, she's on my Scottish English side and my Anglo-Saxon side. So hers was a lot simpler too. But the fact that she'd taken care of so much of it, and I was still drinking at the time. I was in active addiction, and that was a gnarly time of, I'm so grateful that she had done a lot. I still had to make phone calls with like funeral directors and organise last viewings, and golly, I was holding my grandmother's hand in hospital early hours of the morning reading to her when she passed. So as I say, I was involved in that too, but not as her EPOA, and that was difficult too, because my mum was falling to pieces, and sometimes she needed to defer to me, but that doesn't come to my mum naturally. But she, again, hadn't had the conversations that I'd had with my gran. Not that I was my gran's EPOA, but gran had sorted so much of it out herself, which, bless her, man. Thank you, Grandma. Rest in peace, Grandma. Rest in peace, Dad. Every day I'm grateful to my ancestors. Amazing people. They've taught me so much. So that is definitely a lesson I took out of it, is be prepared. Be prepared. Please do that for your loved ones. Do it for the people left behind. Even if you think, I've got nothing left to leave anybody, you do. You really do. Let your loved ones say their final goodbyes to you in a way that sits well with you. And if, as I say, I can't go on about it enough, if you can't talk for yourself, make sure that there's paperwork that says and states exactly what you want, what you need. Are you an organ donor? You know, there's lots of things to consider. Yeah, definitely made me get a few things in order after my dad passed, you know, starting on a will, getting that When I Die book, having the conversations with my children, having the conversations, you know, with my partner, and trying to get the nuts and bolts sorted. It's really important. So, yeah, that's it for tonight. I will come back. I've got a radio show on tomorrow, so I've actually got a list of stuff to do. I'm going to carry on working for just another, maybe half an hour. And then I'm going to call it a night. Yeah, my course would have been ending around about now. Yes. Oh, it's hard, I tell you. I don't know. Is it harder to learn a language as you get older? Samoan was spoken all around me as a child. It's not like it's a language I've never heard before. And there are words in Samoan that I use. But this one's super quick, and she really knows the language. I think we need to sing a few songs, eh? I saw a woman today on Instagram who sang numbers in Samoan, then she went on to sing the vowels, and she just had this little tune, and then she went on with the alphabet, and then she went on with some words, and in 3 minutes I probably learnt more than I had in the 3 weeks I've been doing the Samoan course. I thought, yeah, why don't we sing songs? We should at least be learning the Samoan national anthem. But anyway, I'm not a teacher, I'm the pupil, and I just need to practice more and study hard. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for being a part of this, the Gen X experience, and do a kid a favour, hit that like, that'd be great, and maybe share it if you want to, if you know people that might enjoy it, and subscribe to my channel. That'd be awesome. All right, thanks for listening, folks. Mā te wā.